Thank you so much. It is disappointing to me that I am not physically with you today. Every time I take part in one of Dr. Jun's wonderful seminars, I think this time I'll finally be able to go to Seoul, and that is still not the case. But it is my pleasure to introduce this panel, which will hopefully strike a bit more of an optimistic note than the previous remarks from Dr. Kroger, which are certainly realistic and sobering. I'm going to give you a brief roadmap before we get underway. We have a lot of material to cover in the next 65 or 70 minutes. We are going to start out by hearing from Barry Eichengreen, whose feet I have been sitting at for many years, virtually, and Berkeley. I think he needs no introduction. He is going to talk about the fintech business models, the platform models, and what they are doing and what are the implications for financial stability. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Barry, who will speak for 10 minutes and then be followed by Brian. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you, Henny, and everyone, although Zoom is a poor substitute for the luxury of the Shilla Hotel. So I'm going to talk about financial regulation for the platform economy. Given that I only have 9.5 minutes, I'm going to dive right in. So what I mean by the platform economy or platform business models is a business that allows for collaboration among non-traditional producers, suppliers, different categories of customers in a large scalable network, a business that generates and assembles information not only on the financial activities of clients, but on their non-financial activities as well, which then can be put to various financial uses. They can be inputted into loan scoring systems, for example. And often these platforms use artificial intelligence and machine learning to further allocate and price loans in ways that generate additional data that can be used in anew and loan scoring systems, et cetera, in a positive feedback loop. You will know the kind of companies that I'm referring to. Amazon is in this space, engaging in small business lending. Google is about to be in this space, offering checking accounts through its Google Pay app. Facebook has proposed issuing a stablecoin for use in national and cross-border payments. In Korea, you have Kakao, which has a digital bank that takes deposits, extends loans, and provides other financial services in addition to its messaging and other non-financial applications. And those platforms are in competition with traditional banks, like the one at the top, standalone digital banks, which don't have brick and mortar branches, like the one in the middle, and fintech firms, which provide the infrastructure for high-tech financial services or partner with banks, but don't generally use their own balance sheets for lending purposes. So this constellation, and in particular, the presence of platform companies in this space, creates a number of dilemmas and challenges for regulators. There are lots of things that coexist on these platforms. By things, I mean different activities. There are different entities, as I've just described. There are different technologies that are utilized, all of which potentially pose risks for consumer protection, market integrity, and/or systemic stability, where I remind you the three valid concerns of regulators in this space are consumer protection, market integrity, and systemic stability. So because there are so many coexistent things on these platforms, regulators immediately face the dilemma of whether to regulate the entities regulate the companies, regulate particular activities of those entities, or regulate the underlying technology. So I don't think there's a neat and clean answer to that issue. That's why I call it a dilemma. Let me list some of the specific contexts in which these dilemmas and challenges arise. Number one, defining the regulatory perimeter. Who gets regulated? Who is inside the perimeter? Who is outside? Should regulators simply regulate the lending and payments activities of these entities? That would make life simple. But can market integrity really be ensured if financial regulators don't also regulate the non-financial activities of the platform companies? Can financial stability be ensured without also regulating those non-financial activities? Can consumer protection, the ability of large platform economies with all the information on our behaviors they assemble, which enables them to exploit our behavioral biases, can we be protected from that exploitation without regulators also regulating the non-financial activities of those companies? Calibrating entry regulation, limiting entry by big techs into finance and banking is likely to hinder innovation on the one hand. On the other hand, big techs with informational advantages may be able to erect their own formidable barriers to entry by others. Big techs, not incidentally, also control many of the cloud computing services on which other bank and non-bank financial firms depend when they do business electronically. Relatedly, there's the closely related problem of ensuring adequate competition. The level playing field can be tilted by big tech's superior customer data that enables them to price discriminate more efficiently than competitors. Competition can be hindered by their ability to link financial business to complementary non-financial activities, locking in their customers, and the lack of data portability may inhibit attempts to switch by consumers. So some things are done to address that problem of limited data portability. To my eyes, they're not adequate to date. Protecting consumers. Consumers may be unfamiliar with the novel products offered by these companies. Consumers may be unaware that some of these products or processes are still in the testing phase. As I said before, big techs may have information that enables them to exploit behavioral biases of consumers. As I said before, consumers using other platform services may become locked in, and the possibility of data breaches of the data accumulated by these large platforms may impose costs on consumers as well. Avoiding bias and discrimination. So this is a tough one, and I think a big issue. Many countries, like mine, have laws that are intended to prevent providers of financial services from discriminating on the basis of race, gender, ethnicity, religion, etc. And proprietary models and algorithms that financial companies use to price their services are said to be unbiased if the outputs of those models have zero correlation with ethnic or other group characteristics after those outputs are conditioned on measures of fundamental creditworthiness. So the question is which measures and whether those measures of fundamental creditworthiness include those same group characteristics. Traditionally, regulators have addressed this problem by requiring lenders to provide a list of the variables on which lending decisions are made so that regulators can determine whether that list includes prohibited group characteristics, along with the weight that the lender attaches to each characteristic. But if you're using artificial intelligence-based algorithms rather than loan officers to price and extend loans, that list of variables and the weights attached to it will be changing continuously with the arrival of new data points. What do regulators do about that? How do they keep up with this charge of limiting bias and discrimination. Moreover, in the case of algorithmic processes, the location of the bias can be unclear. Maybe the data that is being used to train the algorithm is biased. Alternatively, maybe the data is unbiased and does not include those prohibited group characteristics. But the algorithm may learn bias from users of the platform on which it's deployed and from which it obtains data. So I think this will be a very hard nut to crack going forward. It will be prominent in the lending of these platform companies, but I think as we see more algorithmic finance, it will become even more widespread a problem. And finally, preserving financial stability. If big techs don't use their own balance sheets for lending, if they source lending through peer-to-peer platforms or something like that, they can be subject to moral hazard because their own resources are not at risk. Alternatively, if they use their own balance sheets, if regulators require them to have skin in the game, as Chinese regulators have recently done, Henny will remind us, then the big techs can become too big to fail. So it's a problem either way. And I think in addition, cyber attacks and other service interruptions could destabilize not only individual firms, but the entire payments and financial system if it's dominated by a few very large platforms. So if Facebook can go down for 8 hours over a botched software update, as happened recently, what happens if these big platforms dominating the financial system go down over a botched software update? So I'm conscious I have raised many questions. I haven't offered so many answers. I hope that provides food for discussion for the panelists to follow. Thank you.
Barry, before we let you go, I'm told that I'm allowed to ask you one question. And my question, and please answer in just 1 minute, is you pictured a situation where I think you're suggesting that there's major informational asymmetry. How confident are you that the regulators have the skills to oversee these very complicated beasts? And of course, you know, out of all the players, you're focusing not on the banks, not on the digital banks, not on new startups, but on the large tech platforms. And you know, very persuasively suggest that that's where risks are. How concerned are you about the asymmetry in sophistication and understanding?
I'm very concerned, and I've always been concerned. There's nothing new about this incarnation of a general problem. It's the bloodhounds and greyhounds problem. The regulators are the bloodhounds, but they don't run as fast as the greyhounds. The bloodhounds are always trying to keep up, and that's the challenge. I think in the case of the big techs, there's an additional problem that they can lobby. They have a lot of resources to influence not only technical aspects of regulation, but the political economy of regulation, who gets regulated and how. So I'm worried about the balance of political power as well.
That was such a thoughtful answer. Thank you so much for your time.